This is the Fuel Sports Network.
And that's the bottom line. You want a war? You're going to get one.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
Oh, yeah, we are back for another week of The Bottom Line. I'm your host, Big Daddy Ed, coming to you live from an undisclosed location somewhere in the Lake of the Ozarks. I don't have my two co-hosts up yet. Going to try a little bit something different tonight, give them their proper due. We do have a substitute co-host sitting in for Brett Pierce, who's a little bit under the weather. So hope he feels better soon. But let's go ahead and make our introductions. And I think it's only fitting that we have a little bit of music to bring them in. So without further ado, first up, from the great Hawkeye state of Iowa, let me introduce a guy who was sold so much seed corn at his day job this last month, some would say he's all ears. Let's hear it for Eazy-E.
I think you are sadly mistaken. It is a cyclone state.
Now, the moment we've all been waiting for. Let's bring in the president of our Fuel Sports Network chapter from the great state of Michigan. The only stadium in the UFL, well, hell, probably any stadium in the whole football creation that actually has a section they call the litter box. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mike Elko.
One cat to another. Hey, it's Motown. Motown's hopping this week. Big NFL draft as we are the hosts. Big football conversations all around. So looking forward to tonight.
Well, Mike, I know we're going to get to the Michigan-San Antonio game eventually, but just to kind of kick that part of the discussion off. Dude, come on. Anyway.
I mean, ooh, that's cold. That's cold.
I've watched my fair share of Price is Right, man.
Oh boy. Okay, let's get at it because we got a lot going. We got a little new few twists and turns tonight that we're going to introduce. So let's go to the first game of the week. St. Louis at Memphis, or no, excuse me, Memphis came to St. Louis. And I would say my takeaway from that game was St. Louis left a lot of meat on the bone. And what I mean by that is the score, even though they won by 2 scores, they had a couple opportunities in that game that they could have really shut the door and really not made it much of a game from the get-go. First off, the St. Louis was ahead 17-6 after 1 quarter, started the second quarter off, and they were driving right down the field, stalled well within field goal range, and we ended up missing the field goal. And a short 7 plays later, Memphis scored a touchdown and got the 2-point conversion. So, it went from being a potential 20-6 game to being 17-14, just like that. And then you turn around in the second half, it was pretty much stayed. The St. Louis was able to squeak out a lead at halftime. That carried clear through the third quarter. The fourth quarter rolls around. We score, turn around, get the ball back, turn over on downs. We're running right down the field again, have a chance to go up with comfortable lead, and Jay Peasy puts the ball on the carpet. And so, he eventually atoned for himself later on in the game and got a touchdown. But the final score was a 32-17. Could have very easily been a lot worse than that. But you know what? In this league, as much parity as there's been, for the most part anyway, I'll take that victory. What do you think, Eric?
I'm throwing a flag.
Throwing a flag.
I'm going to throw a flag, double flag.
Double flag.
I have to apologize for everybody that listened to us prior to the season. I could not be more disappointed with Memphis's performance to date. I would say that if you had to look at the first almost half of the season, can you find a more disappointing team? I'm surprised that Arlington's 0-4, but I'm not. I'm more shocked that Memphis is sitting at 1-3. Was I glad they came into St. Louis and totally laid an egg in the second half? Sure. But I just did not expect Memphis to look as bad as they have looked. And I would say, man, if you take their 4 games, okay, you take their 4 games and you take the second halves of those 4 games, how bad does Memphis look, fellas? How bad? They have put up goose eggs in at least 2 second halves, if I'm not mistaken. In game 1, I think they had 18 at halftime, and they won 18-12. And then in the St. Louis game, now I'm not sure against Birmingham. I think they put some points up in the second half. It wasn't a lot because they didn't score a lot, And then that game in San Antonio, they had the win and then somehow gave it up. But I don't remember what I don't know what the points look like in the second half. But I know 2 games for sure. They put goose eggs up in the second half. I don't know, man. I am completely befuddled when I look at their offense, when I look at their roster. I don't know. I gotta throw the flag on Memphis. I just don't get it. I don't get it. Mike, what do you think? I don't understand Memphis.
Well, and I'm looking at the stats here. Anytime your quarterback is sacked 4 times in a football game, and the amount of hits he's taken. Case Cookus, he will
12 times in the last 2 games.
Yeah, that's
St. Louis doesn't sack anybody, and they sacked him 4 times.
Yeah, there's a lot of trouble with that offensive line. Obviously we've seen from the last few weeks that work still needs to be done. Either you need to find somebody on your roster who can step up to help your quarterback, or you have to go free agent shopping. In this point in the season, that's got to be difficult to do. The only positive thing that I would say for Memphis fans is you got to be thinking San Antonio. Do you keep they would have been in big trouble if Michigan were able to get that another game ahead of them. So that still keeps it close. You're still within a game of number 2, because remember, the top 2 seeds get the playoff berth. So anytime you make the playoffs, then hey, anything can happen. But I don't know if we're in panic mode for Memphis. It's looking pretty bad right now. So you just gotta hope that you can keep close. You can want to hang close with Michigan, because first place in the USFL conference may be out of reach by now, but gun for that. Houston too. They got their win this weekend. It's a 3-team race for that number 2 spot.
Well, the bad part for Houston.
So answer.
They're 1-3, and they got to play Birmingham twice yet, I think.
Yeah.
So that's not.
So answer this. So last week they played Birmingham. Memphis did, and there at the end of the game, Memphis was calling timeouts, and Coach DeFilippo, apologizes to Skip Holtz before after the game's over, and they're talking in midfield, and he really wanted to make sure that, Skip Holtz was okay with the fact that he called timeouts at the end of the game. Fast forward to this game with St. Louis, they were 2 scores down. That 4th and 12 is still relevant.
Right.
It got to be a minute some left in the game. St. Louis had 3rd down, and he didn't call a timeout. He didn't stop the clock. He let over a minute just run off the clock at the end of the game. And I'm like, what are you doing? You talk about going from one extreme to another. I didn't get it. It almost felt in the stadium like he was just throwing in the towel and he wanted to get out of Dodge. That's the way it looked.
When we interviewed him, I was ready to throw the pads on. He really, the things he was saying, the things that he was talking about, he's trying to instill in his players and so on and so forth. I cannot imagine the disappointment in him, because I know I can just tell Coach DeFilippo is a guy who, looks internally like, man, what can I do? What can we do? But when you start looking around the room, there's other faces where, maybe Case Cookus isn't the guy. He's been under fire, hasn't looked comfortable, has been rushing things. I get it. You've been sacked more than Justin Fields, for the Bears, but it does. I don't know what the answer is for. I don't know where they turn.
Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk more on this game on the other side.
Houston, we've triumphed. I've made it back to Earth with the cargo intact. The game-changing, time-sensitive payload is none other than the revolutionary energy flavor we've all been waiting for. Introducing Merc Mayhem Cherry Limeade. Merc Clan played a crucial role in securing this energy flavor, and together we've unlocked the future of power. Merc Mayhem is not just a drink, it's a statement, a fusion of relentless energy and bold flavor. The secret is out. Merc Mayhem is set to redefine the energy landscape, leaving ordinary drinks in its cosmic dust. Get ready for a taste explosion that matches Merc Clan's unparalleled power. Join the revolution, and let's unleash Merc Mayhem upon the world. Astronaut M signing off.
We are back. Yeah, I looked at that game, and when Cookus there at the end, when he got injured and had to leave the game, once they had to bring in the backup, it was pretty much over because, at that point, they were one-dimensional. They had to be one-dimensional because they had to get the ball down the field. And St. Louis just started. They pinned their ears back and started coming.
But offensively, if you look at, and I didn't leave the stats up here, but if you look at offensively, if you look at what they did just in terms of the St. Louis game, I mean, it's if you go to the time of possession, St. Louis, 38 minutes, 31 seconds. Memphis, 21 minutes, 29 seconds. 66 total plays for St. Louis, 39 for Memphis. 355 total yards to 127. They almost doubled them up in yards per play. Red zone touchdowns, 4. Red zone attempts, 4. Rushing yards or passing yards. St. Louis 222, Memphis 60. Rushing yards, 133 for St. Louis, 67 for Memphis. Like, where do you go from there? I mean, we're not even talking about the top defense in the league. I would say St. Louis is probably 3, 4, 5 in the league. Mike, you would probably know better than me as far as total defense.
Not as far as total defense, Jesus, but you guys just hit the nail on the head because even when when we saw the Battlehawks play the Panthers in person, we weren't sure what defense St. Louis was going to have. We know with the shootout they had week 2, that nearly went to overtime, and looking at the stats here, I mean, it's scary. I mean, only 55 yards passing for Case Cookus and 37 for Troy Williams. It's that's not a good recipe. That's especially when you think that with Coach Flip. Well, from what we saw last year when he had McLeod Bethel Thompson for the New Orleans Breakers, they were slinging it all over the place.
Right.
And I think they have. I believe they have the guy in Case Cookus, but like we talked about, if you're getting sacked as much as Justin Fields, it's not.
If you were to break it down like this, Mike, I'll pose this question to you. Do you think so? We saw what the St. Louis receivers were able to do, and I think Memphis has a pretty good defense.
Mm-hmm.
They're out on the field a ton, obvious, almost twice as much as their offense. We saw what the receivers for St. Louis were able to do. Obviously they have AJ McCarron. I'm not, that's you can make an argument he's the best quarterback. You can make that whatever, but when you look at the receiver room for St. Louis, do you think that maybe, I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but is it the receiver room? Is it that? Is it the play? What is it? What do you think it is with Memphis? I can't put my finger on it because I'm shocked.
I mean, I'm just going to point right back to what we know, and that's just you can't win without the men up front. That's who you win ball games with. That if you without those guys, you can't run efficient. What you want to do too is if you have a solid offensive line, you can do those 8+ play drives. Take some time off the clock and actually have good game management, good clock management. And without those guys, they're the unsung heroes of the game. No one really talks about the O-line really until there's problems, and then you don't hear a lot. They're hearing a lot of problems in Memphis right now with the O-line. But again, all it takes is just time. If that can be for however they can do it, just buy some Case Cookus some time. For him to dissect the defense. He knows where we've seen him the last how many years in these spring football leagues, especially 2022. He would, gunslinger or in the pocket. He can take the hit. He'll sit there himself for as long as he absolutely possibly can and take the hit and make sure that ball needs to go where it needs to. But he's not getting that time. So it's
their tackles, their left and right tackle.
So
they're
the only thing
like rented mules. It's awful.
So the only comment I'm going to make, and then we're going to move on to another game, is what John says here. They had St. Louis Battlehawks Appreciation Night at Busch Stadium, and John comments here that it's the worst baseball game I've ever been to. And the only thing I'll say to that is, as that relates to Saturday's game, you had you had 31,700 and change at the game because we had a St. Louis Cardinals game going on at the same time. Fans of St. Louis, I know that the Cardinal Red has been around St. Louis for a long time, and I know that there's a dedication to the Cardinals and everybody. I mean, there's 81 home games in a season for St. Louis, and everybody like mummies just blindly goes to every game because it's the Cardinals, and everybody goes to the Cardinals. Well, I got news for you. Until you guys quit being mummies and going to every home game just because they're the Cardinals, DeWitt's going to keep pocketing all the money and not put a winning team out there. It's ridiculous to watch what's happening to the Cardinals the last couple of years. And all that you guys are proving by filling that stadium every game is that he can line his pockets and he knows you guys are going to keep coming.
It's Chicago Cubs curse.
That's the
It's
only
curse.
It's the last thing I'm going to say. Let's go on to the next game. Let's talk about DC at Birmingham. You know, I've always said that it's amazing that you can play 3 hours of football. And in this case, there was a lot more than 3 hours because the weather was pretty nasty that night. But it's amazing how games can come down to basically one or two plays
Yep.
to decide the game. Case in point. And, you know, before I get into that one play that pretty much made the game, decided the game in my eyes, I'm going to say this game showed me that just how ludicrous, how bad the kickoff rule is in the league this year. If you look at the average return on the kickoffs, you're putting teams out there on the 40, 42, 45. Shoot. If it's a good coverage, they're still got the ball on the 30-some yard line. It puts so much pressure on the defense to stop the offense that the way these kickers are kicking, they get one or two first downs and they're already in field goal range. And this DC game and Birmingham game was a perfect example of that, where they played tough, hard-nosed football back and forth. And then basically in the fourth quarter at the end, it turned into a pinball game of exchanging field goals because one kicks a field goal, kicks off to the other team, they return it to practically midfield, then they kick a field goal, they kick off, the ball gets returned way past midfield. I mean, to me, they're just allowing special teams to have way too much influence on an offensive defensive game.
I get your point, but I think they wanted returns. They wanted a little more excitement in the game. So my argument would be, to your point, Ed, my argument would be they did that because they wanted to see some returns. Apparently, special teams is not real important during the week because it seems like everybody gets the ball at least the 35. But
that's on good coverage.
Right, that's good coverage.
It's usually 42-yard line, I would say.
If they tackle them on the 35, I'm like,
yeah, anything.
It seems like the 50. I mean, I would argue that the kickoff is what's keeping some of these numbers, these total yardage numbers down in the game. So I understand that. But I also think a counterpoint to what you're saying, who anticipated, I certainly didn't, I didn't even think about it, who anticipated that the kickers were going to be as salty as they have been? I mean, look at how great the kickers have been. What's the overall percentage in the league? So I understand it changes a game when you're looking at the 50-yard line, a couple first downs, and you're in, at the 50-yard line, one first down, you're kicking a field goal, and it seems like guys are drilling them. So I hate to see it come down to the 165-pound leg, but it's kind of a give and take. I mean, I like to see kickoffs that are actually returned and they have to actually cover it. But I don't like to see games decided by the 165-pound leg either. But that is, I don't think they anticipated the kickers are going to be as accurate and as deadly as they have been. So I think maybe they made me, because I think the kickoff, I think the guys kicking off, as strong as some of them, if they're maybe with the field goals, the kickoffs are constantly landing at the 15, the 20. Sometimes a guy will big boot it, he'll put a little more line drive, but that's negated because it's a line drive down to the inside the 10. But maybe they need to talk about maybe moving that up just a little bit. Maybe the 25 gives you a little bit more, because I agree with you, Ed, on the fact that I hate to see every drive start at the 40 or midfield. But I think counterpoint to that is I just don't think they anticipated that these kickers were going to be nailing field goals like they are. So I think,
Mike, Mike, you've went through a whole season already with this rule, so this is really no surprise to you. No. What's your thoughts on the kickoff rule?
I mean, I think, to Easy Eric's point here too, I think too, I like that. I think it's good for the league. Now, rules can change, I'm sure they're not stuck with these rules if they need to move it up, what have you. But, we've seen it, your Battlehawks, they pinned Michigan inside the 5 on a couple drives. They pinned Michigan pretty back, deep in their own end zone a few times during the game. So it's not a disaster of a kickoff, but with the scoring, with the drive starting about the 30 or 40 yard line, even close to the 50, I think that's what a lot of people want to see. NFL scouts want to see. They want to see these guys in scoring situations too, because again, they're trying. The whole point of this league too is to get more film for these guys too. So if they do catch an eye from the scouts, hey, we need to bring, let's say Marcus Sims for the Michigan Panthers. He was even on Fox Sports 1 as a highlight, and even Keyshawn on there, Johnson. He would be a top 3 wide receiver on pretty much any NFL team, in his opinion. Now, he has the speed, but I think it puts a lot of these guys in scoring situations. They want to see what they can do in these game time situations where, hey, it's third down, or in even kickers too. With what we see, there's a big. I don't know what the number is, but there's a streak going on for field goals right now in the league, and a lot of kickers are going to have, I think, a fair shot at landing an NFL contract probably after the season. I think there's going to be a bidding war for these guys' services.
Well, when we come back, we will wrap this game up and we will turn to the San Antonio game. We'll be right back. We're back. I would say with this game, Birmingham and DC, to me, the game was decided on one play. One play made the difference in this game that basically turned it from a DC win into a Birmingham win, and that was Ta'amu had a 3rd and 9 on DC's 30, 35 yard line or whatever. It was 3rd down and 9. He does a quarterback scramble. It was kind of like looked more like a quarterback draw. And he looked like he was going for a 1st down. And if he gets that 1st down, DC, runs the clock down to nothing, kicks the winning field goal, and goes home a winner. And instead, safety. Oh, God, I had it right here. Safety by the name of, I think his last name was Tillery. He come up and stuck Ta'amu. Yeah, it was JoJo Tillery, safety. He come up and he drilled Ta'amu 2 yards short of making the first down and forced DC to kick that field goal with about 1:08 left on the clock. If Ta'amu makes that first down, in my eyes, the game's over. DC runs the clock down to 0 and kicks the winning field goal. So I'm not going to take the cat out of the bag, but I will say that he's probably a good candidate of mine for stud of the week. Okay, let's move on to San Antonio, Michigan. And I got to give a little props. I got to give a few props to our San Antonio people. As long as they're winning, I got to keep propping them up here. So hey, there it is. Here we go. And for Michigan,
they are who they thought we were. We had them.
Oh man, I
I
was watching the game and I'm like, oh my God, it wasn't the same Michigan team, and it's like I understand that it was their first home game or their first road game, but I didn't think that should really have any bearing on things. But
it was the same Michigan team, playing defense, holding their opponent to under 20.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion, Mike, and you would know this probably better than me. I mean, I watched the game, but you're more invested. 3 turnovers.
Yeah.
You cannot afford. If there's one thing I've learned, you cannot afford to turn the ball over in this league.
Yeah.
And when you have a +2, it's not good.
Not good, especially with the offense too. With Michigan, I think Michigan I was watching the game too, and I've noticed with this Michigan team, especially for the offense, they get better as the game goes on, and they would get drives together. And I've made this comment somewhere, like, San Antonio, they made they have either a game-changing play or a game-changing player. And one player that I wanted to point out too was their edge rushers. One particular, Tim Ward, that really, got that strip sack on Michigan. And with it being their first road game too, it was a team that, they weren't used to being this, this early in the season, from the first 3 games, because the announcers, hey, this is one of the least penalized team, and now you're getting penalties. They're giving away free penalty yards. So it was like, okay, so there's a lot, because they 3 home games and then go with their first road game. You're out of rhythm. Everything's not routine. Something that's a little off. So you're here to have some off things going on that you have to adjust to, and then this comes with the penalties. And then I think they just flat out a good offense that I wasn't sure how Quentin Normandy would play. And I'm researching the offensive coordinator for San Antonio. It's an air raid system. He's a pupil of Mike Leach. He knows how, just get a guy who can sling it around. It's a wide receiver driven offense. And they just, looking at the stats here, he was able to spread it around, different wide receivers. And that can be a recipe to get some of these good defenses off sequence, spread them out, sling it around. And if you got good possession wide receivers, you can do some damage. And, with it only being a 10-point win, hey, that's, you got out of there. Pro football, there's no style points with it. Just get the W.
Yeah, turnovers really killed you in this game. That was, drive killers.
Yeah.
Things like that. You just can't do that in this league. And that to me that to me was, I mean, Perry didn't have a great game when he was in there. Etling came in for him. Was Perry hurt?
Yeah, we don't have an injury report yet. We may see that on Wednesday because they have a Sunday game. So on the Michigan Panthers Discord, we do have. I did see a transaction. They did waive one of their wide receivers. That is Sewell, who was one of the Philadelphia Stars. One of their good wide receivers too. So that's a surprise to me. Now it may have been a what do they say? A casualty cut, where, hey, maybe they're bringing in an offensive lineman. Maybe they have to, hey, maybe we need to make some adjustments here. So that's going to be interested to see what's going to happen with that transaction because I think Sewell's a good wide receiver. So I think this is a necessary adjustment that the front office of the Michigan Panthers had to make to move forward, especially if they have these offensive line woes, and that's been a common theme even the last couple of years with these spring leagues. Is O-line talent's hard to find.
Do you have any worries about Perry going forward? I mean, Etling came in and he was efficient. I think he was 11 of 14, 105 yards, but he was efficient.
If he can, if Etling can be that, can have those numbers, there could be definitely a competition amongst those two. EJ Perry is still the guy. I think even the fan base too really hopes that he comes out way healthy, as we all do. But we've seen a few games, with 11 for 14, 105 yards for Danny Etling, and EJ Perry before his injury, he was 7 for 13. Now he was running he had to run because he had to, not because he needed to make plays, but it was hey, we could still ways to go. I don't foresee right now a change at quarterback. I think EJ would still be the guy, but another game like this could definitely put a sense of urgency in that quarterback room to make a change.
Well, the thing you have on your side of the table is you have Memphis and Houston below you, so that's got to feel
it's a good,
no matter where
you're at. So hey, but
if the game didn't show anything, it shows that San Antonio is in good hands with Normandy as long as he stays healthy. But as JR says here, I agree 100%. I think whether it's to win the division, whether it's to be the second team in the division, whatever. I think that last game against San Antonio in Week 10 is going to be a very important game for a lot of marbles. So we'll see. Moving on to the next game, we're just going to spend a few seconds on it. We've kind of already touched on it briefly. The only thing I would say about the, Houston and Arlington is the fact that I just want to point out once again, as I'm driving down the interstate to my conference here in Lake of the Ozarks, I couldn't type 0-4 fast enough for Mr. Perez. I'm just letting all you guys that want to keep crowning him as the best spring quarterback in the league, just remember that the Mr. Perez is now 0-4. And wonder if we're going to see the same thing we saw last year where, when he was the quarterback of the Vipers and the Vipers were out of contention, that they traded him to a contending team, so he had a chance to make a championship run. It kind of looks like maybe Arlington's going to be in the same boat this year. So are they going to keep him or are they going to ship him off? Because 0-4, looking up at two teams 3-1 and another one that's 2-2, I think is a little bit reach. I'd say you definitely stick a fork in them. So what are they going to do with Perez? That's the question.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot to be said about this game. I watched it, and I did not see the King of Spring at all. He may have had some numbers. I think he ended up putting at least, I would say, average numbers up, but it was nothing to write home about. It was a tough watch. What do you think, Mike? Were you able to watch it?
Yeah, I watched some of the game. I was able to catch it, but I was like to give a shout out to Houston Roughnecks. Hey, they got their win here. I was the only one on the show to pick the Houston Roughnecks.
You
So
did.
Mark Thompson coming back. I had a feeling that, hey, this could be their game, and sure enough, it was. But I was actually, quite surprised, with as much as I picked the Roughnecks, but I expected a better showing from Arlington. And last week we talked about panic mode, and I said this game is going to be, both these teams are on thin ice, and then one bad step, someone's falling under. And I think right now, I think the Arlington Renegades are underneath that cold sheet of ice right now, and it's not good.
No. Again, another team that loses the turnover battle ends up on the short side of the stick. So, I mean, that's an important thing. Don't turn the ball over, take care of it, and you'll be all right. So, but Arlington, who you want to talk about? What did we call it last week, Ed? We had live support, stick a fork in them, dead in the water. Yeah. That's Arlington right now. Yeah. Dead in the water, stick a fork in them. I don't know, man. It's not good.
Houston has a pulse with Mark Thompson in the backfield there.
But I was surprised. I thought, and maybe they were just holding him back because it was his first game back or whatever, but his impact wasn't, in my opinion, in that game. Maybe him just being in there made an impact, but his impact in that game on the overall, if you look at the stats, he was 9 for 34. Yeah, 9 for 34. He did have a touchdown. He had a long of 12. Let's see, receiving, he had 1 for 5.
Yeah, he could be just getting his feet wet back into it. I know
that could be. That could be, but I thought maybe, he would come in there and if they got the win, he was going to have to dominate. He didn't dominate, and they still got the win. So if I'm Arlington, if I'm an Arlington Renegade fan, I'm just oh boy, holy buckets.
We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to start a new segment that Easy E's got going called Studs and Duds.
Same great taste. Yes, same great taste. Same great taste.
Kind of like to change things up a little bit, get out of the old routine that gets kind of boring after a while of doing the same thing week in, week out. Eric has come up, Easy's come up with a studs and duds for week 4. So we're going to let him go ahead and take it, and maybe Mike and I will contribute depending on what we got for time, because we got to get to our picks yet.
All right, so we kind of thought about different things that we could do to kind of break up the show and add to it a little bit. So I came up with a studs and duds category for the week. Some top performers and then maybe some not so top performers as we've seen across the week. And I thought, rather than do it from week 1, let's kind of see how things shake out. And so in week 4, I decided I think this is the time to roll out studs and duds. And then I added a final category to it, which is just your plain yuck. So yuck is going to finish it up, but we'll start with the studs. On the quarterback side of it, I've got 3 of them for the week. A.J. McCarron, 35 for 45, 222, 3 touchdowns and an interception. QB rating of 100.2. Matt Corral, I don't know what they're doing in Birmingham. With the performance that Adrian Martinez had last week, you would have thought that he would have solidified something. But Skip Holtz in an interview said, I think I have 2 good quarterbacks. So we're gonna play them both. So what does Matt Corral come in and do? Matt Corral comes in and goes 19 of 29 for 240 and a touchdown with 102.7. So I guess Skip Holtz knows what's going on, because I thought when they started Matt Corral, I thought DC was going to roll. I really did, because I thought Adrian Martinez, he didn't look very happy on the sideline. Did you guys watch that game? Yeah. When they panned Adrian Martinez, he was not very happy. You could tell. He wasn't high-fiving people. He was mad. And I get it. He had an
Yeah.
unbelievable performance. Probably he would have been a stud last week. So I can see when you're a competitor like that, how that would be tough. And then, of course, Quentin Dormady for the Brahmas. His completion, 23 of 37. That's okay. But he did throw for 269 yards, so he was actually getting the ball down and stretching the field a little bit. He threw for a touchdown interception. He had an 81.9 QB rating, and his completion percentage, was a big hack to that. But, hey, you're the backup. Chase Garbers goes down. You come in and you lead your team to a big win over the second-place team on the USFL side. I got to give it to you, Quentin. It's a great game. Running back side, I think this one is easy. Jacob Sailors, 15 attempts, 103 yards, had a long of 57. From what I can see so far through 4 weeks, if a UFL team can establish the running game, establish the game on the ground, it opens up a lot. And I think that's been one of Birmingham's strengths. I think they've been able to get that ground game going, and that really puts a lot of pressure on the defense. And hopefully, go ahead.
So what about the opposite of that, Eric? You talk about establishing a run game. What about the pass that opens up the run game that you alluded to last week, where the running game for St. Louis seems to be more effective in the second half?
Oh, 100%. If you look at Sailors, for example, I think it wasn't the Arlington game. It was the San Antonio game. If you have to stick with the running game, but if you're running that defense all over the place with the passing game, and that end of third quarter, fourth quarter, those defenders are tired. That's when the backs can get traction. And I think his 57-yarder was in the fourth quarter, Ed. Am I correct? You were there?
Yes, I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you
that's happened a few weeks in a row now.
Yes, that happened in the San Antonio game, and then it happened in the Memphis game. So I think that the head coaches that stick with the running game, I think that's been effective. Birmingham has kind of been able to run the ball from the start, and I think that's really helped them out. I think that's what helps their numbers go up. And I know Adrian Martinez was a big part of that, but they also had 133 yards in the game again this week. So kudos to Birmingham for that. I got to give it to a pair of wide receivers from San Antonio, Justin Smith and John Trey Kirkland. Both went over 100 yards, 107 and 105 respectively. That's coming up big, because when I talk about our duds, you're going to see exactly how big that was for Dormady when he comes in as a backup. So one more, I can't ignore the defensive side of it. Lamont McFadder for Memphis had 11 tackles, 8 were solo. That's a big game on the defensive side. Now, I mean, Memphis was on the field for a long time, but again, I can't leave out the defense. It can't always be an offensive category. So Lamont McFadder gets my defensive nod for the week with 11 tackles, 8 solos. So that's the studs category, and I think all deserving. Now onto the duds, and there were some big-time duds. First dud, the San Antonio running game. Whoa. I know McFarland was out this week, but John Lovett and company, 22 attempts, 41 yards. It's lucky that Smith and Kirkland went off and Dormady was able to find them, because that running game was awful. That was definitely a dud. Another one that was real close, but I gave it to San Antonio as the dud of the week as far as a unit. But Arlington, 18 attempts for 40 yards. You can't put 40 yards on the ground. That puts too much pressure. I mean, when you're allowing the defense to constantly pin their ears back, quarterback pressures, all those types of things, even if it doesn't end up in a sack, you can't have those things happen. You got to be able to at least threaten with running the ball. And I get it. San Antonio didn't have McFarland, but, it's got to be next man up. So Troy Williams, Case Cookus combination. If you put their stats together for Memphis, this is just not good. It's 12 of 21 for 92 yards, a touchdown and interception. If you put their QBR rating together, it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 62. You're not going to win very many games like that. And Memphis certainly has not won very many games. The quarterback performance has got to be better. And then I could not forget on the dud side, Ed's favorite spring player, the king of spring, pulling out a 65.2 QB rating in Luis Perez for the Arlington Renegades, a paltry 15 of 28 for 144 yards, a touchdown and interception. For the king of spring, it's got to be better than that. If you have the title king of spring, has to be better than that. I didn't see Perez laying on his back 8 times like Cookus, or even 4 times. I'd have to look back. Let's see how many sacks. How many sacks did the Roughnecks have? I didn't look here. They had 2. 2. Perez, you have to be better. Okay?
And to his defense on the interception, even the coach said in the press conference afterwards that
It was a bad route.
That was a bad route. Sal Cannella gave up on the route, and
Basically,
I thought that what was more interesting about that was the fact that he called out his player in the press conference. Kind of leads you to, kind of makes you realize just where their season is at this point when you've got the coach calling out his players. Now, the players have to be accountable, and if they didn't do their job, then they have to be accountable to the team. But still, usually there's a little bit more protection coming from the coaches than that. But, as he talks about studs and duds, I'm only going to add one because, when he's going 3 deep on positions in an 8-team league, there isn't too much more to be said. But I'm not going to call it stud. I'm going to call it my dude of the week.
Oh, yeah.
And that's that JoJo Tillery from Birmingham. I think he's singing, again, it's a team sport, but I think he's single-handedly on that one play in the 4th quarter with 1:08 left in the game, got the victory for Birmingham with that stopping Tamu 2 yards short of getting that first down. That was the difference between winning and losing in my book. Do you have any, Mike?
As far as I just see the post right here on Facebook, Michigan Panthers receiver Marcus Sims is the leading receiving yards receiver for the league. So stud for the Panthers. He seems to show up in every game. But for this week 4, though, this is more of what I saw for my studs, and I think I'm going to give it to the defensive line, particularly for the San Antonio Brahmas, singling out players. Let me see here. Tim Ward, he was the one that created that first turnover for the Brahmas, and I think that was a critical, because when Michigan was starting to get hot, because like I said earlier, they get better as the game goes on. He shut that down, and they have to have their playmaker, and I was like, damn, they were moving. Michigan moves the ball, but Tim Ward was able to shut it down. And we'll go with outside linebacker Wyatt Ray as the other shout out for, I would say, the studs for the San Antonio Brahmas. So I was really impressed with their defensive unit. Now we'll see how that carries over, into the future games. But hey, you had to have them in these wins in this competitive league, and they really stepped up. So. They knew how to fly, set the edge, get to the quarterback. So kudos to those guys. Wade Phillips, he knows something about bringing in talent. So good for them.
JR is also correct. The O-line for the Battlehawks, no sacks, very little pressure on AJ. Definitely a shout out. Definitely a shout out to the Battlehawks offensive line. So now, last little category, the yuck for the week. This was tough. I had a couple.
Yep.
But when I broke it down, my yuck, my absolute yuck, went to, and I know you guys are gonna be shocked on this, the Arlington Renegades as a whole.
I think I'm right there.
As a whole. We already talked about the Luis Perez, Bob Stoops interview. That's a yuck. That's a bad look. That is when you know a team is in trouble, when the coach is like, it wasn't my guy sitting right next to me, it was this guy. And, instead of trying to just, play through, hey, we got to make a better decision, do the normal stuff. He basically called the guy out. That's when you know things are going bad. The rushing game, I already mentioned that. Ugh. 2 turnovers, a fumble. I mean, and that leads to 0-4. The XFL champion from last year is sitting at 0-4. And this week, in what was the toilet bowl of the year so far, they yucked it up. They couldn't find it. And yes, Scott, you're exactly right. The Memphis Showboats, they were close. They were close. But at least the Memphis Showboats put something up, some kind of fight in the first half. It was 20-7 at halftime. And every St. Louis Battlehawk fan was like, oh, man, this game feels like we should be up by 2 scores and we're up by 3. So at least they put a little fight into it. The Arlington Renegades, I watched that game painfully from start to finish. Woof. It was not very good. I mean, I don't know what Arlington has to do to turn it around. A break here, a break there. I have no idea. But when you start throwing players under the bus, you're rushing for 40 yards, things aren't going your way. That wins my week 4 yuck. Kind of a culmination of 4 weeks, but it's a week 4 yuck. You've got to win that game if you have any prayer of being in the playoffs, and they just yucked it up. So week 4, first edition of Studs, Duds, and Yuck. Arlington wins the yuck for week 4.
And one of those contract situations that was kind of hairy before the season started, when they started talking about winning the additional bonus checks for wins.
Oh yeah,
They took that away from the players.
They need to get those back.
Yes.
I would say the way this season is shaping up, especially with the state of Arlington, and that you start taking away the win incentive from these players. I hate to see what the potential is down the stretch with some of these teams as far as checking out. So,
yeah, I agree. I agree there. It's you haven't, you can't just have, oh, this is more film for you to get to in the NFL. Yeah, they're all thrilled to be there. I mean, there's a lot of players that wish they were on those rosters too, but they have that part of it too. And I'm sure NFL, you got your win bonuses and all that stuff too, but don't take that away from what was there. I know the both. If I wasn't aware, but did both leagues have these win bonuses?
The XFL had it last year, didn't they, Eric?
Yep, so did the USFL did too. So with the merger, I mean, I hate that. And now, did their pay increase? I don't have the numbers, but shoot, I mean, I hope I love the players in this. I admire the heck out of these spring football players because they're honestly my favorite group of football players. Just playing for the sheer love of the game. Obviously, they want to get back to the NFL. We all wish they could have a spot in the NFL and make good livings, playing football. But there's what I love about this league too. You got guys that are trying to get back to the NFL. Some that are trying to get to the NFL for the first time. Then you got guys that just want to just keep playing. And those guys who just want to keep playing, are my favorite players. Yes. I love them. I love them. I love them. I love them. And I hope that, if someone's from the league, if they see anything from this show, please get their win bonuses back. Find, have a conversation. The Rock, Danny Garcia, please. This is, we love it. And the competitiveness that these guys bring every week to give good football and the TV ratings show it. We're all watching. So don't take any incentive away for these players.
So what we're going to do now, that concludes the first hour of the Bottom Line show. That's going to be the end of the show for the Fuel Sports Network. For those of you who want to hear our Week 5 picks, and then the second hour will be all NFL as we lead up to the draft. And just to let everybody know, Thursday night we are planning on a NFL draft night coverage. live coverage of comments during the first round of the NFL draft. One-time adjustment. I think I put out there today that it was going to be from 6 to 8. It's probably going to be from 7 to 9. So I had the times kind of crossed there. So we are going to go to a break, and when we come back, catch us on the Facebook, Pro Football Alliance, Fan Legion pages, and we will be back for hour number 2.
This is the Fuel Sports Network.
And that's the bottom line. You want a war? You're gonna get one.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
Hard work pays off. Dreams come true. Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
So Mike come on as a guest last week and kind of stole the show for the picks in week 4. He went 3-1, and the rest of us experienced bottom line guys all went 2-2. So Mike won the week. So that means Mike gets the option of going last this week, because we're not going to let Eric be able to strategically plan his picks all year long.
Of the bottom line guys.
Of all the bottom line guys, Eric is at 11-5. Yours truly's at 9-7, and Brett's out there wandering around the woods somewhere. So we'll get his picks again for this week, and make sure those get included. But let's go through the picks, and heck, I'll go first. I'm not afraid.
I'll go second. We'll keep Eric. We'll see what he can go third.
You're gonna play right into Eric's hands.
Hey,
You bet. Yeah, you bet.
Right,
Mike.
okay,
I love Mike.
yeah,
Mike's a good
okay.
guy. We need to have him on every week.
Midwestern Mike here.
That's
Oh
right.
my goodness sake. Okay, first game Saturday at 6:00. We got this stupid regional game thing going on again this weekend. I haven't quite figured that out. It'll be interesting to see the numbers when they come out tomorrow to see what that did to viewership. But in
They
the
group it as
meantime-
one, I read.
So they're
What's
going to
that?
group
They
it as one.
Yep. They're gonna group it as one rating. So
Okay. All right. So we got San Antonio going to Arlington. I think I'm going to take San Antonio. That's probably the way to go with this one.
Wait, I'll go first on that one. San Antonio.
What about you, Mike? Are you feeling You feel
Oh man. So looking at this matchup, so as much as we would all like to assume San Antonio would win this, looking at the stats, obviously Quinn Normandy played really well. However, one that's kind of lingering is that rushing yards total. So this, I'm a believer in, when your back's against the wall, you're going to get a team. When a team's in the corner, you're going to get their best shot. They're home. You got, he's going to figure out something here, I believe. So my pick, it's going to be, because a lot of times, a lot of games, you don't know. It's always the ones that you're certain of that go the other way. And I think with the public, everybody would assume San Antonio. I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to take the Arlington Renegades. They will get their first win. It's going to be a shocker over the San Antonio Brahmas to get their first win of the season. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I think they're going to find a way. We've seen they can put up numbers. They had teams come back on them. I think they will find a way. They will find a way to get their first win.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right, Mike.
No. All I know is you talk about their backs being up against the wall. I would say they're on a bridge and they're about to get pushed into the Rio Grande.
Yeah, that's hey, if there's any motivation, that we better win this week.
Right now, they're looking over their shoulder doing this right now. Okay, so the other 6:00 game on Fox is Birmingham at Houston.
I'll take this one, Ed.
You're going to take this one? Way to jump right out there, dude.
I'm going to jump right out there this time. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to take Birmingham.
We'll just keep this one quick. Stallions here all the way here. Sorry, Houston. I hate to spoil your win. You had, I need a little shining light of a win, but unfortunately, you're right into like Dan Campbell says, when you see that light at the end of the tunnel, the light is actually a freight train, and here it comes. Giddy up, here it comes.
As I'm glad, as a host, I'm willing, when you finally let me go last, it's a Birmingham-Houston matchup. So I just want to appreciate you guys, going out on a limb there for me. Okay. Sunday, the first game, 11:00 a.m. It was this time last year that I went out to Washington, D.C. with the Hyena, Amanda, my daughter, to go to the D.C. game. And it was also an early game on Sunday. And that game didn't turn out the way I had hoped. But I'm not going first this time because I haven't decided yet. So go ahead, whoever wants to go.
I'll and from what I believe in this game too, from last year, from you guys will have a better understanding than I would. I know this game's on YouTube, but this game's it's a chippy rivalry, if I'm not mistaken, right? Between these two teams, right?
I think the game we were at in DC last year, the game ended with helmets rolling around on the turf. So I think there was a couple suspensions handed out, and there's no love lost between the two teams, that's for sure.
This is probably going to be the hardest pick of the week, to be honest, between these two teams. Well, from what we saw, and this is what the eye test, watching a little bit of, from what I was able to see from this DC Birmingham game, we know how good the Stallions are. And anytime they had to come back to win this one, I think right now I'm going to give, the home field advantage. I'm going to go DC close. DC in a close game here.
Eric?
Well, I've got a motivation for the way that I'm going to pick this. Simply because I have a 2-game lead. So, win or lose this one, I can still hopefully maintain that lead. So I am going to take DC because I believe that if I take DC, that the Battlehawks are going to win.
I like the strategy.
So I'm going with DC.
Well, as long as you think that, and you think that we're going to play that game, then I'm taking St. Louis because
go ahead.
If you're right, that benefits me, and I need to make up some ground.
That's all right. I will be totally fine. I will be totally fine coming back next week and saying, "Hey, Ed's only a game down because he took St. Louis." I took DC to ensure a win, so you can have that one if that's how it works out.
Well, St. Louis has never beaten DC in history of the spring league. So DC definitely has every advantage and every reason to be the team that should be picked here. I guess I've been, I was really nervous going into San Antonio. Heck, I was even nervous against Memphis last week because the defense for St. Louis just kind of still scares me a little bit. But what St. Louis showed me last week is that the way they can spread the ball around is I think that they can win the time of possession battle again and keep DC's offense off the field. And I think that extra time it gives St. Louis's defense to just do enough. Yep. And, they've been able to hold the other teams to 17 points or less.
That's what we're hoping for.
That's I think that if they can hold DC to 17 or below, that I think St. Louis has got a real good shot here. So I'm going to take St. Louis in a close one. All right, the 2:00 game on Sunday on Fox, Michigan at Memphis. And you got to believe that Memphis is going to be playing for their life.
They are. And looking at the games this week too, and I can't think of a better time to have it midpoint during the season. All games are conference matchups. And you want to talk about this, honestly, is going to be my favorite game of the week. Yeah, I support the Panthers, but as far as Memphis, you're in a spot where you can turn this around. You got Michigan, you just got to keep it close. We don't know how their offense is going to be. We know how they play. They're more of a smash mouth team, run the ball, but if you can keep close, you're at home. So if any Memphis Showboats fans watching, you can't ask for a better recipe right now to come out and support your team. That you could be on life support, and we'll need your help. So get out to that stadium at Liberty Stadium, Liberty Bowl. This is going to be, it's a sense of urgency. I see Robert here. We don't know about EJ Perry yet, but what we did see is that Denny Atling had a good showing. So Michigan may not be as far as in trouble in the QB room right now, but with the different from what I've seen from Danny Etling before last game, he's turned the ball over, which we know we can't do in this league. So it's going to be interesting to see. Now, as far as my pick goes, based on what I've seen too, I'm leaning Michigan. Could this be closer than? Yeah, I think this will be a close game. I think Memphis will linger around, and that may be because Michigan's offense lets them hang around. But until I see the offensive line problems fixed, I can't. With Michigan's defense, I know what Case Cook is capable of. Seeing him firsthand, Philadelphia Stars practice, it's going to be a close game, but it can go either way. But my pick right now, I'm going with the Panthers here.
And as Scott says, he makes a good point. As bad as the Showboats have looked the past 2 weeks, if they somehow manage to pull things together Sunday and beat Michigan, they will be in second place in the USL division.
Yeah, big time game. This is a big time game for playoff chances here. To keep the division or the conference, not division, compressed. Keep everything close. Big week for the Memphis Showboats. Must win.
Okay, Eric.
Whoa, you're up, bud.
No, I'm well, all right, I'll go. I don't know but I'm going to say this. A week ago, this would have been an easy pick for me. I would have said Michigan all the way. But EJ Perry kind of scared me a little bit, what I seen against San Antonio. And now, especially, against Memphis, man, if he's got, Coach Flip, he's got to show that he's still got the locker room. And I got to think this week's practice is going to be intense, and he is going to have their attention. And I just got to believe at home he's going to have those guys ready to play, and they're going to show that this season ain't quite over yet. So I'm giving you one more chance, Memphis. One more chance. I'm going to take the Memphis Showboats.
Well, along the same lines as Ed, Memphis has been one of the biggest disappointments. But a bigger question for me is home Michigan going to show up, or is road Michigan going to show up? If road Michigan shows up, it's Memphis. If home Michigan shows up, I take Michigan. But since they are on the road, I'm kind of with Ed. I got to give Memphis one more shot. I'm going to give them one more shot. Memphis, if you cannot find, you cannot dig down, and you cannot understand that, yes, you'll be 2-3, but you will be a half game ahead of Michigan in second place. If you cannot understand that, then there is no hope for you. Because if Michigan wins this game, it has become a 2-horse race. I firmly believe that. If Memphis goes to 1-4 and Houston goes to 1-4 and Michigan's sitting at 3-2 and Birmingham's sitting at 5-0, I mean, unless Michigan absolutely falls apart, this is a 2-horse race. If you cannot find a way to win this game, Memphis, it will be stick a fork in them, twist, whatever you want. It'll be over. So I'm going to go with Memphis one last time. But if home Michigan shows up, poof. Ugh.
Okay, before we stop the UFL talk and turn to the NFL, this last question's for you, Mike.
Yep.
Robert's asking if you have any insight on EJ.
Not yet. We should have a good idea Wednesday when the injury report comes out. I think too they didn't want to throw him back in. He was walking around on the sideline, but I think in terms of what this league's about too, I think Coach Mike Nolan, the coaching staff, they had to give Danny Etling his fair shake of playing time, get him some film too, kind of like what Birmingham does. They have a good quarterback system. He wants to make sure that these both guys get adequate film time so they can show NFL teams, hey, this is what I've done in the league, or my passing tape. You want to have tape. So that's part of it too. Understanding too that you are in a decent position in the standings right now, and you still want to risk EJ right now as far as continuing. It was a hamstring injury, it appeared to be. Don't want to do anything to stress that further. But we're all looking forward to see that injury report if he's good to go. If not, hey, Danny Etling will.
He looked like he got shot on the field.
Yeah, it was, and
then he hops back up and he throws a pass, an incomplete pass, and he kind of jogged off, and then he didn't come back in after that. But he looked like he got shot when he was rolling out there to the right, and I thought, I've seen.
Well,
that.
they mic'd him up, and they said that they won't let him go. Meaning they won't let him go back out in the field. So
yeah,
I
know he went into the tent, but they didn't really give us any.
Yep. Because the sideline reporter asked about his status. He said they won't let me go back in. So it sounds like if EJ had the say, he would be back in there. But that coach, no, we're not gonna, if
we're gonna push it.
Yeah. So maybe he needs more rest. Hopefully that's just the worst case, that he just needs some rest and ice it, but I think it was good too to see Danny showed some things too. He throwing a touchdown pass, so that's good to see for him, and having Marcus Sims to throw to is pretty good as well.
Yeah, maybe the fastest guy in the UFL.
Yeah.
So when we come back, it's time to turn our attention to the NFL draft. We will be right back. Breaking news.
Live on the bottom line.
Live on the bottom line, breaking news. We have the NFL draft is finally here. And we've got a Bears fan in the corner. We got a Lions fan down below. And you've got a
NFC North.
you got a frustrated 50-plus-year-old Vikings fan that if they don't trade up this draft, I'm done. As Brett would say, I'm done.
Don't forget Brett's blow up.
Yeah.
That is
Get well
my
soon. Get well
that's
soon,
Daddy
Brett.
Ed's rant for tonight. That's Daddy Ed's rant
I
right there.
am done.
Brett's watching
Oh,
us.
God.
So hey, Brett, feel better soon, my friend.
Yeah, I feel better. But just kind of give him a little bit of, you got to at least be able
There
to
he
see
is.
Brett.
There's his
So,
appearance.
There he
there's the guy right there.
is. I'm just wondering when am I going to get my little rant?
Let's get to
page?
say, well, all I know is certain producers have been asking Eric for a picture for I don't know how long, and we've never got one. So
Well, I mean, heck, you can
don't
take a
sit there
snapshot.
and bitch
You
if
can take
you're
a
not
snapshot
gonna,
right
if
here.
you're
Ready?
not going to be responsive. Huh?
Snapshot it. Go ahead. Snapshot. Get to this. Let's get-
So,
This
So,
draft. This draft. As a Bears fan, okay, I already know the Vikings are going to screw it up, Ed. Okay, trust me, they're going to screw it up, and you're going to be a Jets. You're going to be like a Jets fan, going, "Oh no!" and it's going to happen. But as a Bears fan,
I'm going to
this-
tune in Sunday when we got 35 seventh-round picks.
yeah,
After we
right.
traded down for 3 days.
And you won't have to pay attention to the draft till Saturday. But this draft is, at least on paper, who knows what happens after. We've seen a lot of great college quarterbacks absolutely disappear in the NFL, either because they can't read defenses, system, whatever it is. This is probably, in a long time, one of the most exciting and deeper quarterback drafts that we could be looking at, because you're talking about quarterback number 5, quarterback number 6 that might be a little less than NFL ready, but potentially having even a higher ladder than some of the guys that are taken above them, I believe. I mean, when you talk about Nix, Penix, I know they're saying McCarthy's climbing the ladder. I just don't see it. Maybe somebody will draft him higher than I think he's going to go. But you talk about Williams, Daniels, May, throw McCarthy in there, Penix, Nix, and I just think it's one of the deeper ones where number 6 quarterback taken, if that's Nix, Penix, whoever it is, could be just as good, if not better, than Williams.
Well,
and anywhere in between.
let me kind of play devil's advocate with you, because wouldn't you say that in 2021 that they had a similar draft? Let's see, 2021, there were 5 quarterbacks taken in the top 15 picks. First overall pick, Trevor Lawrence, went to Jacksonville. He's the only one of the 5 that is still with their original teams. Taken second, Zach Wilson, New York Jets. Crashed and burned, got traded to the Broncos today for a bag of chips and swapping of a 6th and 7th round pick. Can you believe that? A number 2 overall pick from 2021 went for a swap of the 6th and 7th round
Listen,
pick.
I'm going to give Zach Wilson.
Hold on. I gotta
You got to give Zach Wilson a half a pass. He went to the Jets. Come on. I'll give him a half a pass.
Number 3, San Francisco gave away the farm to get Trey Lance. Was going to be this up-and-comer next Randall Cunningham. He never really has seen the field, but for more than a couple games, he gets traded to the Cowboys for a 2024 fourth round pick. Then at pick 11, Justin Fields goes to Chicago, traded to Pittsburgh this year for a 2025 sixth round pick. It could be a fourth if he actually does something.
Ain't gonna happen.
So there's a crash and burn. Number 15 pick, Mac Jones, went to the New England Patriots. That's now been traded for a sixth round pick for the backup for Trevor Lawrence. So you got a first round quarterback that now is going to be a backup. Doesn't that sound similar to? Doesn't that sound familiar to you, Eric? Chicago draft one really high there that ended up being a backup pretty quick.
I don't think it's as similar. I mean, it has similarities as far as the number of quarterbacks that they were touting, to go in the top 15. However, I think it's different because of how solid most scouts, and I guess I could throw, I don't believe the hype, but you throw J.J. McCarthy in there now. I don't see it, but maybe how solid they are saying the top 3 or 4 are. In that draft, it was basically the Trevor Lawrence draft, and then you had, solid QBs behind. But I mean, I don't think it, Justin Fields played in the Ohio State system where, I mean, if you can throw the ball at all, you can get away with a lot of things. Zach Wilson, I don't remember where did Zach Wilson play at, Mike? Do you know?
BYU.
There you go. You're not talking about a perennial, in BYU. So I mean, I think it's different. I mean, they definitely talked there were quarterbacks to be had in 2021. Trey Lance. Trey Lance had 2 games in San Francisco and got hurt. Well, you got hurt. Somebody takes your job, and they're not willing to give you a shot back. That happens. If Trey Lance doesn't get hurt, maybe we're not talking about Brock Purdy. I don't know. But an injury kind of sent him sideways, and then it was like, hey, we're not upsetting the apple cart here. So, I mean, I can't really blame Trey Lance. And then, I go back to Zach Wilson. He went to the Jets, man. That's where quarterbacks have went to die for a long, long time. Since Joe Namath, they've gone to die in the Jets.
Well, devil's advocate, though, Eric.
Yep.
Who's been talking about J.J. McCarthy not throwing more than 15 passes in a game?
Me.
And they've got mock drafts going on right now that have J.J. McCarthy going as high as number 3.
And I don't see it. I don't see it.
And I've, being in Michigan, obviously we've had a lot of eyes. I've been watching these J.J. McCarthy the last 2 years, and from what I've read about the reports, all the team, they love interviewing with him. He's got, the teammates love him. The downside with, obviously JJ, he's surrounded by a good team, and that's obviously, you hate to have that as a
Mike. 8 games last year. 8. How many did they play total? In 8 of those games, he didn't throw more than 15 attempts. That's not completions. That's total attempts. Against Penn State, he didn't even have an attempt in the second half.
That's not. Hey, if you can get away with running the ball, that's Michigan being a smash mouth team.
Is that called a game manager?
But listen to me. If you're in the college ranks, you can get away with a lot of things. Justin Fields proved it. You can get away with not being able to read the defenses because you have better athletes on your side of the ball than the other team does. You can get away with a lot of things because maybe we're playing a team today that only has 4 NFL guys on the defense.
And I tell you
what, in the NFL, they're all NFL guys on that side. And they're all running 4-4s, 4-3s, the corners and the safeties. And the linebackers are running 4-5s, 4-6s. I mean, it changes. And that's where these quarterbacks in college get exposed for what they didn't get exposed for in college. And Justin Fields did not get exposed in college for not being able to read defenses because he didn't really have to. And then when you come up to the line in the NFL and you can't read a defense, you think, I'm just going to use my athleticism to make this play happen, and it doesn't work.
Well,
That's what happens.
in defense, with JJ McCarthy's situation, you want to talk about, with Alabama and right up there, I would say even with, the pro day, Michigan is right now, or it could still be an NFL prep school, from all the scouts that showed up here and I'm seeing these mocks too, and I keep seeing it, and it's going to destroy me if the Vikings get their hands on JJ McCarthy. Now, he may not start right away, but he has all the tools.
They have Sam Darnold. He's not starting right away. They have Sam Darnold.
Yeah, so he has all the tools.
Well,
I think if Kevin O'Connell, if he can develop JJ for a year, get him, because he's already had enough professional prep from Jim Harbaugh. And then now you bring Kevin O'Connell, who's been, he's learned under Tom Brady in New England as a backup. He's seen a lot of things in the NFL. He's an NFL head coach now. You get a nice dome. You play in the NFC North, so he knows how to play in the cold. I see the Vikings. If the Vikings take him, that's going to be tough.
Well, here's the deal with me. Well, let's finish the quarterback discussion first, and then I'll get into.
Do you really believe right now? And I'm not saying down the road. I'm saying right now. If JJ McCarthy gets drafted by, we'll just say, the Vikings, do you really think he's going to step in day one, win a job, and do the job at the NFL level right now?
Remember now, he's got to compete against Sam freaking Darnold.
Yeah. Let's just assume right now.
I'll go
Okay.
yes.
Man.
I think
Mike, have you been drinking?
So here's the deal.
I'll be the one guy. I feel like that, and all these NFL analysts, they all like to look at the numbers. Everyone likes to look at the numbers, but I like.
Here
we
like
go.
Caleb Williams. I like Caleb Williams, who only had one receiver this year and put up the numbers he did.
So
Yeah,
here we
Jerry
go.
Rice's kid, that's it.
Caleb Williams is going to Chicago.
It's a given.
Jalen Daniels is going to Washington. Okay. So now that leaves you with New England. They need a quarterback big time. You got the New York Giants. They need a quarterback big time.
Bad situation.
And you've got Minnesota. They need a quarterback big time.
Probably the best situation.
So what do you do? Because here's how the water gets muddied. Okay. You've got New England. Why in the hell would they trade down? If you've got a chance to get a quarterback that you love, that you think is going to be around for 15 years, then here's your opportunity to take one at number 3, and you don't have to give up any stock to get him. You just draft him, okay? Number 4, you've got the Indianapolis, not the Colts. You've got the Cardinals. And number 4, the Cardinals need a wide receiver in the worst way.
Marvin Harrison.
You've got Marvin Harrison Jr., and you've got a couple others. Neighbors. You've got game-changing top 3 wide receivers that both Cardinals, Chargers pick 4 and 5. They both need wide receivers bad. San Diego basically stripped the wide receiver core and got rid of everybody. So both 4 and 5, they both have an opportunity to get a top 3 receiver that could be game changers. So what is their incentive to trade down? Now, granted, you can trade down for a stockpile of picks, maybe a number 1 next year, whatever. I get that. But their need is right there in their hands. And you're going to tell me that they're going to pass on that?
The Cardinals aren't passing.
I just can't see. I've seen a lot of mock drafts that say Minnesota's going to trade out with the Cardinals. I don't see it. I don't think the Cardinals.
They're not going to trade out. Here's where I think the trade out's going to come. Here's where I think your opportunity is. I think, and who knows what happens, but this is what I think. I think Minnesota is going to trade to the 5 spot. I think they're going to leapfrog the Giants, and I'll tell you why. Los Angeles is counting on Jim Harbaugh's knowledge of the college game to find those diamond in the roughs, and they have absolutely gutted the Chargers. I think what the Chargers are going to try to do is the Chargers are going to try to stockpile picks. Maybe, for Minnesota's number 11, depending on who comes there, and a 2, a 3, or, somewhere. And they might even trade down from the 11 and try to stock, because I've read a couple articles where like the Chargers are weighing Jim Harbaugh's knowledge of the college game for the last dozen years, especially these last couple years for these guys that are coming out, that he is going to be able to find those guys that are going to be able to fit in his system that maybe are not on the radar of everybody else on here. Or it's on their radar, but they think they're more of a 5th or 6th round, and he's going to be able to get him in the 4th round with some of these picks, or maybe an early 5th round with some of these picks that he gets from other teams. I would not be surprised to see Minnesota not go with the Cardinals, but go with the Chargers.
The problem with that I see with that, though, and that's where the Giants come in. If you're the Chargers and you know that the Giants, let's just say McCarthy, I don't fill in the blank. It's McCarthy more than likely, because I think that the other three, the top three, are going to all go 1, 2, 3. I don't think New England's going to trade out. I think they're going to take their quarterback. Okay, so say the Cardinals go ahead and they take Marvin Harrison. Okay, so now the Chargers are sitting in the catbird seat, because if the Giants say we want a quarterback, they're sitting at 6. They're 1 pick behind. So if the Chargers do a deal with the Giants, they can let the Giants come up, take their quarterback, they slide to 6, they still get their wide receiver that they wanted, plus whatever stockpile that they get. So they're more than likely to trade with the Giants than they are the Vikings.
No. Listen to this. So they trade with the Giants and they flop 5th and 6th. And they get a buttload of picks for it. What happens now if they contact the Vikings and say, are you willing to sit around? Or you want to come on up here to 6 and we want some more picks? What about that? That would be an absolute coup if you believe that Jim Harbaugh knows the college game and he knows where these different receivers and this running back and these linemen and this, he knows that. What better way than to absolutely coup it out and say, okay, yeah, New York, we'll flip-flop with you. You go get your guy. And then with the number 6 pick, we have a trade. And Minnesota has done this with the Chargers, and Minnesota moves up to 6. And now the Chargers could have 10 picks or better.
I see a mock here. I'm reading a mock right here. And it makes sense to me. Now, they may not pick him at 5, but I think he still be there at 5. And they have here mocked for Joe Alt, offensive tackle from Notre Dame. You want to talk about Jim Harbaugh type of player to bring in. His father played for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's the son of NFL. He has an NFL dad, and yep. Harbaugh, he loves, I think, something about the family part of it, the legacy part of it. I think Harbaugh would feed right into that. Having that football upbringing, and then having, an offensive lineman like of his caliber to come in, one to protect Justin Herbert, because we've seen him. He's had a problem of getting hit, so I think that's one issue they can address too. And I think what you just said, Eric, too, if they make these trades and get him, which they very well could, because a lot of these guys leapfrogging, look, they're trying to, because the Giants they're QB needy, you're going to have them all leapfrogging. So I think that is a great recipe there for get some picks and get the guy you may want potentially. I mean, who the heck knows?
Yeah.
But having said that, then that does kind of put the Giants in a position that probably is going to take a little more draft stock to do what they want to do than they maybe anticipated. But what stops the Giants from making that deal with the Cardinals? because in the same respect, the Cardinals could drop down to 6, and they're still going to get a good wide receiver too.
But what happens then if the Chargers say, "Oh, something just fell into our lap. Marvin Harrison just fell into our lap." Can the Cardinals risk that? I mean, the Chargers have taken all their receivers, went like this, and tossed them out the door. Can the Chargers then say, "Well, we need more picks, so we're going to let Marvin Harrison ride"?
And he's another one of them legacy picks too. And
yes. So do they really do that if the Cardinals move out of the 4 spot?
Well, it depends on how they've graded Dunze and Malik Neighbors, and
I think Adunze going to Adunze is going to Chicago in 9. I've seen that in multiple drafts.
This is, speaking of this is draft too. I can't remember a draft it's exciting, and this is going to be a very intense first round, especially at the top here. I can't remember the last. Maybe the 04 draft, where this one it's a lot of stake here. With these
after the 4th pick, I cannot wait for Goodell to come out on the stage and say, "In the 5th pick, we have a trade." I'm just going to go like this because I think it could happen anywhere from 5 through 8. I mean, who knows who's going to be around? Maybe the Bears do something. I mean, I could see Minnesota trying to clamber up there. I think they're going to have to if they want to try to get a quarterback, unless they think Sam Darnold's going to be the guy for this year, and they want to try to get a Penix or a Nix. Then, and we've seen guys fall. Maybe all this J.J. McCarthy stuff has been nothing but hype. I still think it's a brilliant move by Harbaugh. He went out there and said, "I think J.J. McCarthy's a man. He's the dude." Well, maybe he is. But it could also be Harbaugh saying, "I'm now in the NFL game, baby. And I want to get J.J. McCarthy paid, but I also want somebody else to start thinking about J.J. McCarthy when he's not on my radar, and I need my guys."
Well, another player that I'm dreading seeing where he goes is Cooper DeJean.
Cooper DeJean's going to go 25 to the Packers. Ugh.
Oh, God. Well, but they even in another mock, I seen him going to Detroit, too.
I see him here. I'm reading the mock too that has him going there. My pick, though, I don't know if when we're getting to like your preferred teams, but I've seen one where Darius Robinson would be a heck of a story. Born in Detroit, grew up a Lions fan, fantastic defensive lineman or edge rusher. Imagine him lined up alongside with Aiden Hutchinson. Holy smokes, who's going to pass against that defensive lineman or run against that defensive lineman? That defensive line. That's going to be something. But there's a few needs Detroit. They corner. My initial, because I've seen some mocks where Kool-Aid McKinstry from Alabama would be the pick. Now, when you consider what's going on in Alabama, you are getting, this is the last lot of the defensive backs coached by Nick Saban. That's his bread and butter of the positions he coaches. So to get the last bit of Nick Saban type of player on your defense, on the defensive back, could that's something to be considered. I see Kool-Aid sliding down a little bit. Don't know why, what's going on. Maybe they just like somebody better. Iowa produces good defensive backs as well. So it's interesting to see. They can go a lot of different ways here.
I don't know if DeJean's injury hurt him, but how do you go from being the top graded cornerback in college football by all measures, a solid defensive unit, and you're somehow getting bumped by guys? I don't get it.
So let's take one last break. We're going to give the Wild Sun a little bit extra love tonight. When we come back, we'll do our final segment before we call it a wrap. And we are back. And like I said, only thing else, we've talked all month about the fact that Minnesota was going to trade up for a quarterback, 2 first-round picks, blah, blah, blah. It would not surprise me if the Vikings do not do that because they hate giving away picks. They hate being short picks when they go into a draft, that I could see them holding tight, taking somebody else at number 11, and then hoping, praying to God that Bo Nix or who's the quarter?
Penix.
Penix. Either one of those two happens to still be on the board at 23.
Man, I tell you what, when you look at this, I mean, you got Seattle sitting at 16. You know, they could grab a quarterback if they're available. You know, Denver, I mean, I know they just traded for Zach Wilson, but they could be grabbing a quarterback. It'll be interesting to see what the New Orleans Saints do. You know, I don't know where I mean, there's some teams, I mean, they have a quarterback, but do they have a quarterback? And if they view Penix and Nix as maybe not being NFL ready out of the gate, do some of these teams jump up and grab them? I don't know if you can sit around till 23 where the Vikings hold their second pick. I don't know. That'd be a gamble, man. That'd be a gamble.
And as we talked about wide receivers, there's also another scenario that I was reading about today. You got the Buffalo Bills that lost Stephon Diggs.
Oh, yeah.
And they need a wide receiver in the worst way. They're talking about now that Buffalo may be willing to try and move up. Shoot, they're clear down there. They're at 28.
28, yep.
They're talking about stockpiling a bunch of picks to try and move into the top 5 to get one of the top receivers. Now, I doubt they can get to the top 5 because their first-round pick just doesn't have enough meat. But I could see them trading up into the teens and maybe getting their hands on maybe one of the top 5 wide receivers or something like that.
The mock I'm reading has them taking Xavier Worthy at 28 from Texas.
So I could see Buffalo making a first night move too. So
I mean, the thing about these teams that have a Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, you know, you don't have to have the Marvin Harrisons, you know, the top guys. You have to have receivers that are good on routes, got good speed, you know, they get separation, things like that, because Josh Allen can make them better. It's when you have a team like Chicago that never has a quarterback, that no matter how good receivers are, you know, your quarterback can't deliver the ball. So I don't know how. I think Buffalo getting into the top 5 would be a huge stretch. I think, to me, I would be surprised if the top 4 picks aren't locked. They're not moving, which goes back to the Chargers at 5. Telling you, do not be surprised if the Chargers don't pull off some kind of pick coup and get, you know, maybe the Giants to move up, flip-flop with them at 5 and 6, and then maybe fleece the Vikings coming up to 6. That wouldn't surprise me a bit. That's total Jim Harbaugh to me. Completely Jim Harbaugh.
And you know, the other thing that's not sexy about the first round that nobody wants to hear about because they always want the top wide receiver, quarterback, you name it. But everybody, the first thing they want to bitch about on their team is their offensive line sucks, right?
Yeah.
Well, you've got some quality offensive linemen that you could have as many as 6, 7 offensive linemen go in the first round that you may have your team pick an offensive lineman and you may be disappointed and think that, oh my God, we really screwed it up. But then for the next 10, 12 years, your offensive line is is being anchored by this guy that you went in and picked in the first round. So
they're my favorite players. My favorite.
A good offensive line can make up for flaws, big time. A
good
offensive line can make up for all sorts of flaws. I
You
mean,
can't run any plays without him.
no, that's exactly right. And, that's one of the things that I thought maybe if the Bears don't go with a wide receiver, a Doomsday, let's say maybe he went before that, I see them going edge. They've got to pair somebody with Sweat on the other side to take some pressure off him, kind of like you talked about with Detroit, taking some pressure off Hutchinson. But the Bears have solidified their offensive line in the offseason. They've picked up 2 nice pieces to kind of fill in the blanks.
Yeah.
So I don't see them being, I don't see that as big a need for the Bears as maybe it once was. They were an average offensive line this last season, but with the 2 additions, I think they've become, it's Bates from Buffalo, and there was one more that they picked up. I think they've solidified that through through the other means. So I see the Bears looking at either wide receiver or edge rusher at number 9. I don't think they're going to trade either way. And maybe they can trade down if the right thing presents itself, but I don't see it.
So I look at everybody talks about edge rushers. I look at edge rushers, and I know that everybody wants to find that elite edge rusher, right?
Hutchinson, everybody wants a Hutchinson.
But the impact guys are few and far between. I don't know how many draft picks Minnesota's wasted on defensive linemen trying to find that edge rusher. It seems like the edge rushers get drafted like crazy every year, and how many of them actually pan out?
Well, but because on the defensive side, they are just as impactful as finding a Patrick Mahomes. That's why teams are willing to use pick after pick trying to find that edge guy. And then once they do, now they want to find the other edge, because then now who do you double? If you've got edge pressure from the other side, how do you if you want to roll the coverage toward Hutchinson, fine, but now you've got a dude on the other side that you got to deal with. So now maybe you can't constantly roll the coverage to Hutchinson and give him help on that side. Edge rushers, because it's become a passing league, edge rushers have become kind of the unicorn quarterback find on the defensive side. That's why they waste that. Well, like you said, that's why Minnesota's waste so many picks on it, because they're trying to find that guy that can constantly put the pressure, because the passing game has become so important in the NFL. Period.
So Mike, now this year we found that this will be the year that Detroit actually has to pick at the bottom of the first round.
Yeah, different.
They're not going to have that luxury, and God knows they don't need to draft a kicker because they never use him anyway, even if they had him. So
we got one down the street too, possibly.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know who it was. Was it Chris or somebody?
You mean he would actually kick a few, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, shoot. I mean, gotta tell Dan Campbell, hey, let's kick a couple of these now.
Quarterbacks go to die in Chicago. Kickers go to die in Detroit now.
Well, kickers, you kickers may not even have to get up from the bench in Detroit.
So what do you think they're looking? So what do you think Detroit's looking for in the first round?
Honestly, as much as we, think that they need a wide receiver, I think they're going to go on the defensive side. I think it's between either an edge rusher or a defensive back. I would be happy with either. What I want is Darius Robinson. I want the pressure up front, good story, and I think he would be a Dan Campbell guy. And I think he would be all for it. I think the city would really embrace it. It'd be a popular pick, and I think it'd be warranted given his athletic ability too. So that's the pick I want.
Do you agree with Chris, Mike, DN, cornerback, wide receiver, interior defensive lineman in that order?
Well, I mean, he is listed as Robinson's listed as an edge rusher. So there's your defensive end. You could go with the Iowa defensive back there for corner, wide receiver. I mean, is there a position where I feel like there's depth across the board? as far as, I mean, I think this is a pretty deep draft. You can go either way. Boards will change throughout the draft. Every team, and those maybe watching too, you're gonna have Belichick on the Pat McAfee show, completely different style of draft coverage. That's gonna be pretty exciting to watch too, because each team's gonna have their own different boards. We don't know what their scouting or their grading system is gonna be. We know I've went to a Central Michigan Pro Day a few years ago, and I got to talk to some scouts there. There was a New England scout there, and I asked them, "Are you guys more of a national scout or a Blesto scout?" And they go, "Oh, we have our own draft evaluate or our own grading system." So a lot of unknowns how teams operate, and they all operate different from what I hear. So it's going to be, some go points. They base their picks on points, meaning they give, if this player if we take him here, that's worth this much, or whatever system. I think that's what the Lions use as far as their system goes. And I love seeing the war room footage.
Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's got to be one of the most tense nights ever.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I have
it's got to feel like us at a fantasy football draft.
Yeah.
Times 10.
You got
a gun in mind, and Ed's picking in front of me. He's gonna take you my no. He's gonna take you my no.
And then your phone rings.
Yes.
So we have the luxury, hopefully, this Thursday night of having Mike. Since he lives in Detroit, he will be at the draft.
I live an hour and a half north of Detroit. It's a quick drive down there, though. I get down there.
Yeah. So we will see. If Mike can help us out at all on Thursday night. Remember that we are going to have bonus coverage. We're going to have another show this week on Thursday night. It will be from 7 to 9. We are going to cover, of course, we can't stream it live, of course, but we are going to comment on all the picks and take it for a couple hours and see where it goes. I think it's going to be a fun night. I'm going to be wrapped up at a board meeting, so I'm going to probably miss the first part of the show.
Flag.
Yeah.
Now my shift is from 3 to 10. That's Eastern time. So 10 o'clock when my volunteer shift ends, it'll be 9 o'clock your time there. So
that works out.
Yeah.
So if we have to talk to you on the back end of 9 o'clock, then we can do that too, because
I
think it's going to be a pretty good night, and we're not going to hold it to 2 hours if we want to keep going. So
I'd like to get some fan reactions, whoever I bump into. Hey, what do you think about, maybe if I can find I'm new with the whole, this would be a first time for me, but I don't know, do you simply just, them little like microphones they have anymore, and you just plug that into your phone, you can just go and talk to people. So I got maybe take a trip to Best Buy or something.
I just can't wait for this. With the 10th pick, and the Jets like, we want Sapp. No,
what's gonna happen is I'm gonna be in the board meeting, and I'm gonna be presenting my numbers, and out of the corner of my eye, I'm gonna be looking, and they're gonna say, Minnesota Vikings have made a trade. They're trading down in the first round, and right in the middle of my presentation, I'm gonna be going, no! So anyway, join us Thursday night, 7 o'clock for a bonus show, the NFL Draft 2024. Until then,
can't wait.
We'll talk to you again on Thursday. I'll send out a reminder just to make sure you don't forget. Thanks again, Mike. Brett, get better soon.
We'll see you on
Thursday.